pandemic, and actually in Lahore, it is situation is getting better day by day. Patients are less in number, and the disease severity is also decreasing in Lahore. Our even in Avicenna Hospital, the number of admissions have gone down. Similarly, in other hospitals of Lahore, like Mayo Hospital and everywhere else, the patients are decreasing in number, and the situation is getting better. So let's pray to Allah. I hope we will see you soon, inshallah, in college once this situation comes under control. I think after this Bakar Eid, maybe you will have your classes, but I am not very sure till now. So anyway, already a little bit of time is wasted on this internet problem, audio issue. So we'll start. Today, I'm going to discuss with you this very important topic in hepatobiliary surgery, which is a case of obstructive jaundice. So it's quite a lengthy topic, but maybe we can cover it in 2 lectures because already we have lost some time. So I will start with the basics of this jaundice, and let's go ahead. Actually, the in this obstructive jaundice, what you need to know for your learning objectives is that what is the pathophysiology of jaundice, and what is the cause and different types of jaundice, and how will you approach a jaundice patient. This is very important to understand. If you understand these things clearly, then you can manage the patient of jaundice also very easily. And obviously, you would know the clinical features and the complications, and how will you investigate a patient, and how will you manage. And maybe in next lecture, I can give you some clinical scenarios to show you different types of jaundice, how it can present in different type of patients. So let's move forward. So we will just start with the metabolism of bilirubin. Actually, the definition of jaundice is the yellow discoloration of skin and sclera. And this yellow discoloration is because of a yellow color pigment in the blood. And this yellow pigment which is present in the blood is bilirubin. So if there is an increased bilirubin in the blood, this increased bilirubin in the blood will show up its color in skin or in the sclera and conjunctiva as a yellow color, and that is the clinical appearance of a jaundice. So you're all aware of the jaundice. The cause is hyperbilirubinemia, increased bilirubin concentration in the blood. So it is hyperbilirubinemia. So to understand the causes and the different presentation of hyperbilirubinemia, we need to know the metabolism of bilirubin. So bilirubin is actually a breakdown product of red blood cells. Red blood cells are broken down, and the red blood cells are broken down. They carry actually hemoglobin. And in hemoglobin, the heme and globin portions are separated. Globin is a plasma protein and it is reused again, and that heme portion is further broken down, and it becomes through different stages in the spleen or the other macrophages and all these things, it comes down to bilirubin. So what you need to remember only is that bilirubin comes from the breakdown of red blood cells through breakdown of hemoglobin. So once this bilirubin is produced in the spleen or in those cells where RBCs are broken down, they metabolize it to bilirubin, and this thing happens prehepatic. We call this jaundice metabolism, we divide it into prehepatic, hepatic, and post-hepatic. So there are 3 stages of bilirubin metabolism. Prehepatic is formation of bilirubin which occurs in the blood before it goes to the hepatic phase. So bilirubin is formed in blood or in spleen. Then it is attached to albumin as a transport protein and it comes to liver. So prehepatic metabolism only consists of two steps: formation of bilirubin and its transport to the liver. In the liver, there is main metabolism of the liver occurs. Metabolism of bilirubin occurs, and this metabolism is actually what liver does. Liver take up the bilirubin from the blood, and then it conjugates this bilirubin to the hyaluronic acid. So the conjugation of bilirubin, it occurs in the liver. So this is the second stage of the bilirubin metabolism. This is called hepatic phase of bilirubin metabolism. And the third phase is post-hepatic, in which this liver, after conjugation of bilirubin, it secretes this conjugated bilirubin into the biliary ducts. And through these biliary ducts, it goes into the common bile duct and then into the duodenum. And from duodenum, it goes down into small intestine, where it is metabolized and broken down and reabsorbed further. So this is the basics of bilirubin metabolism. So there are three phases. One is prehepatic, in which bilirubin is formed after the breakdown of RBCs. Second phase is hepatic, where there is conjugation of this bilirubin. And third phase is post-hepatic, in which this conjugated bilirubin is excreted into the bile duct. So formation prehepatic, conjugation hepatic, and secretion in the bile duct is post-hepatic. So what we will do, or we will focus here in our lecture, is actually this post-hepatic phase, the conjugated bilirubin phase. And this is also called post-hepatic jaundice, also cause obstructive jaundice, and this is also called surgical jaundice. The jaundice because of some problem after the conjugation in bilirubin. So this is post-hepatic. These two, pre-hepatic and hepatic, are actually medical conditions. Generally, they are due to some medical problem. So they are dealt with by physician. But the post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice is generally due to some surgical condition, and it is treated by the surgeon. So we focus more on the post-hepatic phase. Next is a similar kind of diagram. This is prehepatic in the blood, first phase of bilirubin metabolism. Second phase, this is hepatocyte, and this is hepatic phase. And third phase is actually in the bile duct. This is post-hepatic phase. So in the prehepatic phase, extravascular or intravascular hemolysis releases unconjugated bilirubin, which is joined by the albumin as a transport protein. And this unconjugated bilirubin comes to the liver, where this unconjugated bilirubin is taken up by the liver cells and it conjugates to the glucuronic acid, and it becomes a conjugated bilirubin in the liver cells. So this conjugated bilirubin then is secreted into the bile ducts, and this goes down into the small intestine, where this conjugated bilirubin, by action of the intestinal flora, bacteria, it is broken down into further grades, and this is called urobilinogen. Some of it goes into the feces, very little of it is reabsorbed in the portal vein, and it goes again in the blood, and it is secreted in the urine as well. So all of this goes out, 90% through the feces and 10% through the urine. So this is again a picture of bilirubin metabolism. So we clinically divide jaundice into three types. One is prehepatic jaundice, the other one is the hepatic jaundice, and the third one is the post-hepatic or obstructive or surgical jaundice. So these three are the types of the jaundice. If problem is because of prehepatic metabolism, it is called prehepatic jaundice. Problem is because of hepatic metabolism of bilirubin, it is called hepatic jaundice. Problem is because of post-hepatic or obstructive cause, then it is called obstructive jaundice. So these three are the types of jaundice: prehepatic, hepatic, and post-hepatic. So how the jaundice patient will present to you? The commonest presentation is generally patient presents with the complaint of jaundice itself. Patient will come to your clinic or to your OPD or in emergency that I have jaundice. People call it in layman term, I have Yarkan or I have Pelia, or some people will say I have hepatitis because they also attaches it with the jaundice. So generally, most of the patients will present with the complaints of jaundice itself. Some people might say that my urine color is very dark, my feces color is changed, my eye color is changed. So number one presenting complaint is jaundice. Secondly, they may say we are talking about the symptoms of obstructive jaundice mainly, not the symptoms of pre-hepatic or hepatic jaundice. I will more focus on the obstructive jaundice now. So in obstructive jaundice, patient also will have very dark color of urine. Patient surprisingly will not have dark stool, but they will have pale stool. This is also something different. They will have pale stool, not the dark stool. They will also have generalized pruritus. Pruritus means itching all over the body. And they may have pain or fever or anorexia and weight loss. They show different disease conditions. So you need to know why patient have dark urine and pale stool in obstructive jaundice. This is if you understand the metabolism of bilirubin. Actually, the conjugated bilirubin is responsible for the color of the stool, the yellow or light or little yellowish color of the stool is because of the bilirubin itself. When there is obstruction in the flow of bilirubin to the intestine, this color of the stool does not remain yellow because bilirubin is absent, not coming down into the intestine because of the obstruction. So patient will develop pale color stools. But this conjugated bilirubin, which is already present in the liver, but not going down in the stool, but it is present in the liver and it is present in the blood as well, it goes down in the urine. It is excreted mainly through the urine because the passage of the common bile duct is blocked. So stool will become pale, urine will become darker because more of the bilirubin is drained through the urine or kidneys and less is going down into the feces or intestine. So that's the reason of pale stool in obstructive jaundice. Few people even say that the color of stool is like the multani matti ki tarah ka rang ho gaya. It is that kind of color, stool color. And similarly, the generalized pruritus is also because of increased concentration of conjugated bilirubin in the body. And this increased conjugated bilirubin, when it reaches to the skin, it stimulates the receptors of the skin receptors and it causes itching all over the body. So it occurs only with the conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. That means only obstructive jaundice will cause pruritus, not the hepatic or prehepatic jaundice, because unconjugated bilirubin does not cause pruritus. It does not stimulate the receptors of the skin for itching. So that's another specific feature of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, which means obstructive jaundice. So if patient has jaundice, that means maybe hepatic jaundice, prehepatic jaundice, or post-hepatic jaundice. But if patient has got darker urine and pale stool, that means obstructive jaundice. Similarly, generalized pruritus means obstructive jaundice or conjugated hyperbilirubinemia. Okay, I hope you will understand this. So, if we go further, the signs are also very important. There are few MCQs on these signs, different kind of names. Jaundice is one sign as well. If you see the eyes of the patient, you will see there is jaundice. There may be some tenderness in the right upper abdomen because liver is located there and there may be some inflammation or some problem. But this is not necessarily a sign. Then you need to look for these 3 or 4 different names. You need to remember these as well. One is called Charcot striate. Charcot striate. Charcot striate consists of pain, fever, and jaundice. Pain, fever, and jaundice. In a patient, is called Charcot striate, and this signifies there is ascending cholangitis. So Charcot striates is classical sign of ascending cholangitis. Cholangitis means inflammation in the common bile duct or common hepatic duct. So if there is a blockage and there is stasis of the bile in common bile duct, the chances of bacterial infection is high. And once there is infection of the bile which is static in the common bile duct, it will cause pain as well, and fever, and jaundice is already present. So pain, fever and jaundice is Charcot striate. Sometimes this pain, fever and jaundice becomes so severe and infection gets uh, fulminant that patient develops septicemia. And if there are further features of septicemia added to pain, fever and jaundice, like septicemia features are patient becomes confused and there is hypotension. So there are 5 signs now. Pain, fever, jaundice is Charcot striate, plus you add confusion and hypotension. That means it is called Raynaud's penta, 5 signs. Raynaud's penta means 5 signs. So this is again ascending cholangitis leading to septicemia, gram negative septicemia. This is a severe form of ascending cholangitis. So these are the signs. You need to know the Charcot striate and Raynaud's penta. Then there is another sign which is also very important, and people also ask you about this. There is a law. It is called Courvoisier's law. Courvoisier's law. You need to look for it and remember it. Courvoisier's law is also present in the jaundice patient, obstructive jaundice patient. And this law actually states if in the presence of jaundice, gallbladder is palpable. If in the presence of jaundice, you palpate the abdomen of the patient and you can palpate the gallbladder. So in the presence of jaundice, if gallbladder is palpable, then gallstones are unlikely etiology. Again, I will say in the presence of jaundice, if gallbladder is palpable, gallstones are unlikely cause. So this is Courvoisier's law. That means jaundice patient with a palpable gallbladder, gallstones are unlikely to be a cause. That means cause would be something different than the gallstones. And that could be a cancer of the common bile duct or a pancreatic cancer or duodenal cancer, means it is a very bad sign. Jaundice patient, palpable gallbladder, think of malignancy. Do not think of stone. This is Courvoisier's law. Okay. And then there is another sign. This is Troisier's sign. This is Troisier's sign. There is a palpable left supraclavicular lymph node. So a jaundice patient with a palpable left supraclavicular lymph node, which is called Virchow's node. This is also a feature of deep intra-abdominal malignancy, like a pancreatic cancer or duodenal cancer. A lymph node in the left supraclavicular fossa becomes enlarged because of the lymphatic drainage from the deep organs, retroperitoneal organs of the abdomen. It goes directly into the thoracic duct and it can cause the enlargement of the left supraclavicular lymph node. Also, weight loss may be a sign of malignancy, abdominal mass may be a sign of malignancy, ascites may be a sign of advanced disease. So these are different signs of obstructive jaundice patient. So here I've shown you these 3 things. If somebody can tell me or think of it, pain, right upper quadrant abdominal pain, fever with rigors and chills, and jaundice. So pain, fever and jaundice. This is Charcot striate. Pain, fever and jaundice. This is Charcot striate, means ascending cholangitis. Itching is a sign of obstructive jaundice because of conjugated hyperbilirubinemia, as I told you. So this is Charcot striate. If you see here, there is an enlarged left supraclavicular lymph node. This is called Virchow's node, and this sign is called Troisier's sign. This is also positive in deep intra-abdominal malignancies. And if you see this patient, there is yellow discoloration of the skin. That means it is a jaundiced abdomen, you can see. And there is a lump or mass, which is a globular shaped lump or mass in the right hypochondrium. And this is a gallbladder. This shape is of gallbladder. So this is Coiser's law. In the presence of jaundice, if gallbladder is palpable, then gallstones are not the cause. So the cause would be some kind of malignancy in the abdomen. So these are this is Charcot's right, Troisier's law, and Coiser's law. So obstructive jaundice etiology. Actually, it's a very bad disease, but fortunately, the commonest cause of obstruction in the flow of bile is the stone. One thing which students always tell wrong, and it is very bad to listen from every class, is that gallbladder stones causing obstructive jaundice. No, actually, stones will not cause obstruction of the flow of the bile until unless they comes into the common bile duct. Because if the stones are present in the gallbladder, they are not coming in the passage of the bile. Their gallbladder is lying on the side, and the flow is straight from the liver through the common bile duct into the duodenum. And gallbladder is not obstructing this flow. Neither gallstones are obstructing this flow. But once stones in the gallbladder, they come into the common bile duct, then they are blocking the flow of that bilirubin and bile, and only then they will cause obstructive jaundice. So you need to remember that only stones in the common bile duct will be causing obstructive jaundice, not stone in the gallbladder. Stones in the gallbladder will cause acute cholecystitis, chronic cholecystitis, or whatever, but they will not cause jaundice until they come into the common bile duct and cause obstruction. So this is by far the commonest cause of obstructive jaundice, stone in the common bile duct. These stone in the common bile duct, actually they are not primary bile duct stones. That means they are not primarily formed in the bile duct, but they come into the bile duct through cystic duct from the gallbladder. So actually stones are formed in the gallbladder, and then somehow they travel through the cystic duct and they come into the common bile duct, and then they lodge there and cause obstruction. So they are not primarily a bile duct stone, they are coming from the gallbladder, but they are called, this condition is called choledocholitis. Choledocholitis. Choledocho means stone in the bile duct. Stone in the bile duct. Okay. The all most of the other condition of the causes of the obstructive jaundice, as you can see, is very bad. Malignancy, cholangiocarcinoma. Cholangiocarcinoma. That means carcinoma of the biliary ducts. Then comes ampullary carcinoma, ampulla of Vater. Like at the lower end of the CBD, there is ampulla where common bile duct opens into the duodenum. This is called ampulla. So carcinoma at the ampulla called ampullary carcinoma. Then another common condition is pancreatic carcinoma. Uh, Carcinoma of the head of the pancreas, because of head of the pancreas cancer, once it starts increasing in size, it causes pressure on the common bile duct and causes blockage of the common bile duct, leading to obstructive jaundice. So pancreatic carcinoma patient presents with obstructive jaundice. Then gallbladder carcinoma itself. Gallbladder carcinoma, when it becomes large in size, can also cause pressure on the bile duct and will cause obstruction of the bile duct, leading to obstructive jaundice. So these four are common malignant conditions leading to obstructive jaundice. The commonest is benign, stone in the common bile duct, then the malignancy, pancreatic cancer, ampullary cancer, gallbladder cancer, cholangiocarcinoma. These are the four cancers which can cause obstructive jaundice. There can be benign conditions other than these. One is parasites. Sometimes intestinal parasites, they can travel up to the duodenum and there they can even actually crawl up into the bile duct, and they may lead to obstruction of that bile duct. So parasites can go there and can lead to obstruction. Also, there can be some external pressure by some lymph node in this area or by gallbladder itself, which is called Mirizi syndrome. They can also cause the obstructive jaundice. These can be benign lymph nodes, can be malignant lymph nodes. And also there can be benign biliary strictures. This is a sequelae of some iatrogenic injury to the bile duct, like doing an ERCP. You are doing an ERCP and you cause some injury to the common bile duct, and that injury leads to later on inflammation and chronic inflammation and stricture formation, and leading to biliary stricture. Similarly, some kind of surgery on the gallbladder common bile duct may lead to narrowing of the common bile duct secondary to some infection or inflammation chronic, and that will cause benign biliary strictures. So this is also, but unless you get a biopsy of the stricture, you consider this stricture as a malignant stricture, because malignant strictures are more common, especially if there is no iatrogenic injury history. Okay, so these are the etiological causes of the obstructive jaundice. This is another important slide of diagnosis of the jaundice. You need to know I've shown you the reports of the liver function test. When you do liver function test, you check certain things. What things you check? You check bilirubin level in the blood. For liver function test, you need to have 3 ml of the uh, blood, actually plasma, and you withdraw 3 ml of the blood and you check for bilirubin concentration, number one. You check for whether bilirubin is conjugated or unconjugated or both actually, and which one is more high or normal. Then you check for two enzyme, AST and ALT. These are the liver enzyme. Previously, you used to call them SGPT and SGOT. Now they are called aspartate aminotransferase and alanine aminotransferase. So AST and ALT. Then you check further two enzyme, alkaline phosphatase and gamma glutamide transferase, gamma GT. These two enzymes. Then you can check the urine bilirubin, you can check the urobilinogen in the blood as well. So we'll focus more on these things. The level of bilirubin, level of unconjugated or conjugated bilirubin, level of AST or ALT or alkaline phosphatase and gamma GT. So, and I have shown here that in 3 different type of jaundice, like prehepatic jaundice, which is main cause is hemolysis, like thalassemia and spherocytosis, more breakdown of RBCs, leading to increased production of bilirubin, causing jaundice. So prehepatic jaundice. Intrahepatic jaundice means liver function failure, like in cirrhosis patient or like in hepatitis patient, hepatitis A, B, C. Liver is not functioning properly, not doing conjugation or not secreting. That is hepatic jaundice, commonest cause. And post-hepatic is obstructive, which we have already discussed different causes and all this. So we will compare the liver function test in a patient of pre-hepatic jaundice, hepatic jaundice, and post-hepatic jaundice. So as we know, there is jaundice. So bilirubin level would be high in jaundice, like in pre-hepatic, in hepatic, and post-hepatic, all bilirubin level will be higher. Then we'll do whether it is conjugated bilirubin or unconjugated bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin means there is increased production of bilirubin because of hemolysis, and this bilirubin is unconjugated. It is not being conjugated still with the liver and even in the post-hepatic. So if you check unconjugated bilirubin, it is high in hemolytic jaundice or pre-hepatic jaundice. And in hepatic and post-hepatic jaundice, unconjugated bilirubin will be normal. Similarly, reverse is true for conjugated bilirubin. If you check the conjugated bilirubin, in pre-hepatic jaundice, conjugated bilirubin will be normal. Only unconjugated will be high. But In hepatic jaundice, conjugated bilirubin will be high, and in post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice, conjugated bilirubin will be very high. So this is, with this you can easily tell whether jaundice is pre-hepatic or post-hepatic and intrahepatic. So there are two groups: pre-hepatic unconjugated high, and in other two unconjugated normal. So here you can easily tell which one is this. To further clarify between hepatic and post-hepatic, we'll go and see AST or ALT. These are the liver enzymes which are high in conditions of the liver problem, liver injury, like hepatic jaundice, or hepatic problem like in hepatitis. So if AST and ALT are high, that means it's a hepatic jaundice. They will be normal in prehepatic and normal in the posthepatic. So unconjugated, the AST and ALT high, that means hepatic jaundice. Similarly, alkaline phosphatase and gamma GT are only high in obstructive jaundice. They are normal in prehepatic and hepatic, but only high in obstructive or post-hepatic jaundice. So that says this is up to this level. You can easily differentiate by looking at the LFTs. If unconjugated high, it is prehepatic. If conjugated high, that means either it is hepatic or post-hepatic. Then you will see AST or ALT. If AST or ALT high, that is hepatic. If alkaline phosphatase and gamma GT is high, it is post-hepatic. So that up to this level, you can easily tell the diagnosis of the jaundice, whether it is pre-hepatic, hepatic, post-hepatic. Okay, I think we'll move forward. Little time is of essence. So this is again the same. I actually prepared it for your class lecture, so I think you know. The main, after this blood liver function test investigation, in obstructive jaundice, the lab investigation after doing that, more important is doing a radiological investigation, because in obstructive or post-hepatic jaundice, we are looking and trying to find the cause of the obstruction, which is most of the time a mechanical cause, and the mechanical cause can be seen on a radiological investigation easily. So we'll actually try and look for a radiological investigation, and there are many radiological investigations which are of help to a surgeon in this condition. Simply doing an abdominal X-ray. Abdominal X-ray can show you gallstones. Very few, like about 10% of the gallstones are radio opaque. That means they show on X-rays, simple plain X-rays. Not as common as the kidney stones are visible, because kidney stones are more radio opaque and they are more commonly visible, but the gallstones are actually only 10% radio opaque. Even then, if you simply get an abdominal X-ray in a patient of abdominal pain, and you can see an opacity in the right upper quadrant in the area of gallbladder or common bile duct, you might say that it is a stone in this area. But this abdominal X-ray is not an investigation of choice for a patient of jaundice. Rather, the investigation of choice for a jaundice patient after doing a liver function test is an ultrasound of the abdomen. Ultrasound of the abdomen is a very helpful investigation. It can tell you whether there is a stone or not. It can tell you there is a mass or not. It can tell you there is dilatation of the common bile duct or not. And all these features may suggest to obstructive jaundice. In obstruction, common bile duct, because of the obstruction, dilates and it becomes up to 1 centimeter. The maximum normal limit is 7 millimeter, but if it becomes bigger than 1 centimeter, we say it is dilated CBD and there is some obstruction. Then you can do a contrast enhanced CT scan, CECT, and it can also tell you masses and the tumors and the pancreatic cancer and all these things, and it can also pick up the CBD stone. Then this investigation is MRCP, magnetic resonance cholangiopancreaticogram. It is an MRI of the hepatobiliary system. Magnetic resonance cholangio, like bile duct, and pancreatic duct, pancreaticogram, MRCP. It is a non-invasive investigation, and it is very helpful investigation to look for the common bile duct and the pancreatic duct. Similarly, MR is a magnetic resonance, and ER is again endoscopic retrograde cholangiopancreaticogram. This is a gold standard investigation because it is both diagnostic and therapeutic. You can diagnose a condition and then you can also treat a condition. You can take biopsies and you can remove the stone. You can place in a stent. You can remove some polyps or whatever, tissue or something like that. So it is both diagnostic and therapeutic. Then the next term you need to know is PTC, percutaneous transhepatic cholangiogram. If you cannot put a scope through the intestine or stomach and doing a cholangiogram from below, you can put in a needle from skin through the skin into the liver, and you can do a cholangiogram from above through the liver. So it is called percutaneous transhepatic cholangiogram. Similarly, you can also do an endo ultrasound. Endo ultrasound. It can pick up stone or masses very quickly. So I will show you a few pictures of these and then we'll finish here. This is an ultrasound picture, and if you see there is this is bile duct, this is liver, all is liver. This is bile duct, and this is portal vein at the back, and this white shadow is a stone, and this is a dilated common bile duct. Similarly, this is a CT scan. If you see, this is liver, this is gallbladder, all of it, big gallbladder. But you see similar, parallel to the gallbladder, a very dilated common bile duct. And the cause of this dilated common bile duct is this tumor in this pancreas, head of the pancreas tumor, causing obstructive jaundice because of this cancer. Similarly, if you see here in this, you see it's an MRCP actually, and you see a gallbladder. This is the hepatic ducts, and there is a stone in the gallbladder. Similarly, dilated common bile duct because of there is a stone in the lower end of the common bile duct. This is MRCP, and this is ERCP because there is an endoscope. This white thing is an endoscope coming from the stomach, esophagus, stomach into the duodenum, and this is all common bile duct. And if you see this white thing, this is all common bile duct. Dye is injected, but the black shadows are multiple stones in the common bile duct, and this is because of the stone. The bile duct is dilated. Also, you can see this. These are the surgical clips. So probably this patient already had a cholecystectomy, and these clips are for cholecystectomy. But now they are trying to remove the stones from the common bile duct. And similarly, this is a picture of endoscopic ultrasound. This is an endoscope in the stomach and in the duodenum, and there is an ultrasound probe attached to it. And you can see the lower end of CBD very well, like in this picture. If you see, it's the stone, and like this, it is visible. This is the stone in the common bile duct. So I think we'll finish here, and I hope you spend good time with me here. And if there is any question, I will like to take those questions. Anything you want to ask, and then I will thank you and finish. If you have any questions? If you have any questions, please write down in the group chat, and I can answer you there, or I can speak as well.